Good morning and welcome back to the eDiscovery channel, the the technically challenged eDiscovery challenge channel this morning, as technology is our friend, or so we're told.
Technology is your friend. Use it.
Use these gifts wisely. All these moons are yours, except for this one. Tom O'Connor here. Semi-live from New Orleans. We'll see how live we stay. We seem to be fluttering back and forth here on my internet connection. And as always, joined this morning by Rachi Messing. Rachi, where are you? Are you in Israel still, or back home?
I am back home in Israel right now. So,
okay, good. And hope things are going as well as can be expected there. We are happy to be joined this morning by Scott Milner, who, you can correct me if I get this wrong, Scott, but I'm sorry, you're laughing at me already. Did I get it wrong already?
Come on, Tom, you can do this.
You're the co-practice leader of the eData practice, as well as being a partner at Morgan & Lewis. Is that close enough for government work?
Yep. No, I'm a partner in, yeah. So I'm the deputy practice group leader of our
deputy. I knew it. Deputy practice group leader. There you go.
That's
what I was going.
Practice makes perfect, Tom. Practice makes perfect. We're here.
That's right. I wrote it down. The only problem, Rocky, is as my mother said, I should have been a doctor. I can't read my own writing. and somehow I also wrote it next to something else, so it says like Ian Campbell here. I don't know what,
Sure.
Apparently I was supposed to call Ian the other day as well.
I'm not Canadian like Ian, so we're
there you go.
US, based in Philadelphia, but
are you Philly? Okay, good. So
were you born in Philly?
I was actually born in Philadelphia, yeah, but I moved to Florida. I was too, so I still claim Florida, but I think I've now done the math that I'm officially over 50% back in the state of Pennsylvania, or Commonwealth, sorry, of Pennsylvania, and we're now more than 50% of my life has been in this area in Philadelphia.
Cool. And where'd you live in Florida?
I grew up in Sarasota,
okay.
So yeah, I like to claim Siesta Key, but we all know Sarasota's more inland. But I used to love the Key and the beaches, and so I try to make it down there as much as I can.
Sure. I lived in Hollywood for a couple of years, working on a project down there.
Yeah.
I'm not a warm weather person, so it was pleasant, but it drove Gail, my wife, crazy because she grew up in Seattle and she loved skiing. It was like
not much skiing down in Florida.
Yeah, water skiing didn't count. Although she loved the beach, so it did kind of
balance out a little bit.
Yeah,
that's good. Is there a state that you didn't live in, Tom?
Confusion? No, that's not true.
That one you've been in for a while, so
I think we know that's not true. Yes. No, I was looking at a map the other day, though, curiously. One of those, incredibly compelling things on Facebook where it just really wastes another 25 minutes of your life that you'll never get back. It was, how many states have you visited? And I had visited all of them, except for North Dakota. Never been to North Dakota. Or was it South Dakota? It was one of those Dakotas.
2021 goals, Tom. 2021 goals.
Right.
Yeah, it's on the bucket list. Yeah, no, actually not. If I haven't made the Dakotas by now, I think
you're not missing.
I think I'm going to check out without worrying about that one.
Yeah.
I can think of no compelling reason that would carry me back to the Dakotas. So Scott, enough about me. Let's talk about you, which is why we're here. I could talk about me all morning, of course, as Rocky knows. I always like to lead off with, I kind of was headed that way when I asked where you grew up, but how did you get into this crazy business of ours? And by that, I don't mean just eDiscovery, but the whole legal profession. And then how did they Shanghai you once you were in legal into the eDiscovery side of things?
Wait, I'm sure that I'm sure that Scott like went into legal in order to get into eDiscovery, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, no, it's actually funny. So I wanted to be a lawyer. Actually, I wanted to be a judge since age 5. And my grandparents used to tell the story all the time that I told them at 5 I was going to be a judge. But I guess you had to be a lawyer in most places to be a judge. Although I think there's some places you can technically be.
You know, I should tell you, growing up in New England, you should have moved to New Hampshire at an early life, where in many municipalities, at least at the local level, there is no such requirement. I lived in a small town in New Hampshire when I was a youngster, where the local janitor at the high school had got himself elected the town judge, and was.
I made a poor life choice, Tom. Is all I'm hearing from you. Is I made a poor.
That's right. You know, it was New Hampshire or Florida, and you took the wrong turn right away.
Right. Wrong ramp onto 95, and
that's right. Yeah.
So the irony, though, is when I went into college, I chose to try to get away from going to law school and actually started in business school. Was planning on being an accountant, and then I realized that really wasn't my cup of tea. So I switched
where was that?
At University of Florida. So I was a Florida guy, and at that point I said, all right, you know what, I want to go to law school, and I then switched my major to criminal justice, and then I applied to law school and got into Villanova, but then I decided again, I'm like, do I really want to do this? Because at that point I think loans were like $120,000 back in I think when I started it was 1990. I was going to be in 1998. I decided, you know what, defer. So I was actually a lobbyist for a year. I was into government when I was down in Florida. A lot of connections, a lot of friends that went that route. So I actually took a gap year and was a lobbyist, and I represented students at public universities focused on tuition. And it was great. At 21, 22, I got to do a lot of networking, a lot of speaking in front of the Florida Senate and the Finance Committee and other things, and it was fun for me. But I was also making $9 an hour and eating a lot of ramen noodles. And I decided, you know what, let me go back and go to law school. I can always go back to being a lobbyist if that's really my passion was.
And maybe get paid a little bit more than $9 an hour.
Just a little bit more. So then, at that point, I was like, I got to get out of Florida. And being from Philadelphia and having family still up here, I chose to go to Villanova, and then even then I tried to move back to Florida about 14 times during law school. I was going to transfer back to go to the warmth because I got that cold. I couldn't deal with the cold, but ultimately stuck it out at Villanova, graduated. And the irony, though, is when I graduated in 2002, the market wasn't great. And so this is where my story goes into eDiscovery, and that I summered in-house my second summer, which was a great opportunity. I get to learn the business side, kind of have a one client. The problem is, as the market was on the wrong side of the market from lawyers, trying to jump from a in-house second summer to trying to get a full-time offer at Big Law was a no-no. They were at that point, I don't think all the Big Law were offering all their 3 of their 2Ls full-time positions post-law school. So a random person that didn't even get the test with the law firms didn't really have an opportunity. So got some offers at small and mid-sized firms, and it just wasn't what I wanted to do. And so I chose to actually contract. And I got placed at Morgan Lewis as a contract attorney in October of 2002. Actually, I lied. It was actually September of 2002. And at that point, I was working with a mid-year associate, Tess Blair, who's our practice group leader and mentor of mine. And we started doing kind of, I'll call it eDiscovery type stuff with paper. We would travel the U.S. in toxic tort litigation, collecting records from Iron Mountain facilities, lots of paper cuts from going through mountains and mountains of boxes. But it was funny. We did our first document review in JFS Litigator's Notebook. And yeah, I mean, that was like
the Wayback Machine.
Yeah, it was one of those where Tess just gave me an opportunity to prove myself. I helped build processes and workflows with how we would tackle 7,000 boxes in a warehouse, and she saw a lot of opportunity with me working with her alongside her, and I enjoyed it because it wasn't just practicing law. I did love practicing law, but I liked kind of understanding putting a story together. So it was, gosh, I contracted from, I guess, September of 2002 until about February of 2004, when Tess said, hey, we want to build this practice. Would you like to be my first hire? And then the firm made me an offer to become an alternate associate, track associate, and I said, sure, I love this firm and love the opportunity, and the rest is history. And then I did this, we built it. Obviously started getting matters in concordance, and I loved it because eDiscovery was so new back then that I would be walking into meetings with clients, as a second, third year associate, where I knew more than, a lot of people didn't understand what we were doing. I was dealing with a floppy disk and dealing with other data, and they were like, what do we do with this information? And so having to kind of understand and take guidance from a second or third year associate that would get to go to client meetings or with senior partners to tell them how we were going to handle the process. It was a lot of fun for me. So I was like, this is a perfect fit. I get to practice law, I get to practice kind of business side, and I get to do things that maybe I wouldn't be able to do had I gone in the more traditional route of, writing, responses to discovery and pleadings and all of that fun stuff. And then I got to help build the practice, and it's been fun ever since.
That's awesome. So how big is the practice now?
Yeah.
That's funny. I was the first hire. It was Tess, me, and our admin. We ran everything with some contract attorneys. I think my first project we had 4. Now we have 60 technologists. We have 30 full-time attorneys. We have another 100 full-time attorneys dedicated to our managed review practice. We're running about 100 FTEs on the contract attorney side. And within our technology group, now we have roles like app developers, AI developers, data scientists. It's just a whole new world from what I started back in 2002, being one of 4 contract attorneys on a project.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so, I mean, you've been in Philly ever since, but not really, right? Took a little break there.
Yeah, it took a couple of months, 20 months in Paris. And that was for an expat, actually for my wife, expat stint there. But it was great for me because I was able to help roll out and launch some of our EU capabilities in our London data center. It's kind of ironic now with Brexit. I guess I caused them to decide to leave, but no, it's great. Now I have a technologist in London. I've got a partnership with a number of providers in the EU, and also we have a partnership with a organization that offers managed review and other contract analytics services in Cape Town as well. But a lot of that I was able to kind of run up and kind of build relationships while I was in Europe by taking monthly trips and visiting with our UK litigators and colleagues there. And so now we're fully functioning outside the US as well. And I used to say that my second office was also the American Airlines Lounge. So I spent a lot of time there, but yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. So basically, Scott was doing the whole remote work thing before it was cool. Before we all were forced into it. So
it's cool. When did it get cool, Rocky?
All the cool kids are doing it, Tom. You're just left out.
That's because Teams won't let me log in.
You missed those hours. Those hours working U.S. hours in France was a lot of fun at times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Since it's 8:30 p.m. here right now, so
you know the drill. The drill.
Yeah. So that's pretty cool. So you've really built out the practice. Diverse client. I mean, I've known you for probably 10, 11 years at least. And just I remember when I was came into Morgan Lewis probably 10 years ago, and like you had just done like a pretty massive expansion, and you were up to 25 people in the office, and it was like, yeah, that's pretty cool to hear that it's really just taken off. That's awesome. So University of Florida, which will take us straight into the recent University of Florida eDiscovery Conference, which I know you were repping Florida as much as you could throughout that. Just talk a little bit about, we were talking before we got started, before Tom got on the call, a little bit about conferences and the relationships and kind of how, first of all, how that's missed, like what the missing components are today, and just a recap. I mean, we're a week and a half or I guess now 2 weeks after the Florida eDiscovery conference, and just kind of what were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I mean, there's nothing that replaces in-person connection, and it's, you know, I think there's a lot of factors that go into that. And it's maintaining and building relationships, and not just with our, you know, clients, but I feel like I'm a stronger practitioner and lawyer when I interact with my peers in the industry as well. I think even when it's folks from maybe the opposing bar, you know, the plaintiff's bar, obviously most of my work is on the defense side. But understanding their positions, I think, actually helps me be a better advocate on my client's behalf, and I get to understand. So some of that's hard to replicate virtual, because you don't have a lot of dialogue. You can have as much dialogue as you want on these Teams and Zooms and WebEx as whatever, you know, platform you want to use today, but you miss some of that kind of water cooler, you know, talk. And that's why I was so thankful and really appreciated the opportunity to join you guys. This feels like a little bit of my exciting, the water cooler talk that I've missed so much with, you know, being at these events, you know, on that side. I am looking forward to kind of getting back to those live events. On the flip side, what I will tell you, what the pandemic has done, I think, for our industry is I'm hoping it's expanding our bubble. We all talk about we're in this, you know, this bubble of e-discovery and information governance and cyber, and that people that don't want to do it don't understand it and they don't have opportunities. The one, I think, really cool thing, and University of Florida was a great example of that. By opening it up to make it free and virtual, you know, we had about, I think, usually about 100 participants live, and I think 600 live stream on a normal year, 600 to 800 maybe. The last count we had 3,000 unique people attend at least part of the seminar. Wow. We had, you know, over 2,000. I think I looked at the number. I was on all day. I don't think our number dropped until the last session from 1,600 unique people on. But when we did the actual analysis, there were 3,000 people across the world. I mean, it was not just the States that logged in for at least some of the session. Most of those people may have never had the opportunity to just hear some of those nuggets that maybe advances the way we do things. And to me, that's the one really positive about you know, industry events being virtual. And I do hope that we can all get back and see each other and, you know, and have those, you know, local talks. But I hope that most organizations will give an online opportunity for people, because I want to continue to advance the way we do things, and, you know, the value that we bring to the practice of law and how we advance the practice of law and the delivery of legal services. When it's within a bubble, I feel like you almost cheat people out of realizing what we do is pretty darn cool and special. And the technology that's out there and how you learn from it, that's my one takeaway. And I hope I answered your question on that. But that's the one positive, you know, I have. And then obviously there's, you know, I can't wait to see everybody and give some, you know, give some air hugs or real hugs to my friends, and when I get to see them again.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think, you know, pre-pandemic, I felt like I was beginning to get at the stage of like conference burnout. Like you hear the same people, the same speakers, the same stuff, you know, conference to conference, nothing new, nothing, you know, that it's really, like you said, advancing the industry. But I feel kind of like a lot of the stuff that's happened now, because people are trying to be a little bit different, a little, you know, how can I attract people and give them new information? How can I, you know, if I'm going to ask them to sit in front of their computer for 3, 4, 5, 8 hours, I actually need to give them something more than just a simple, hey, let's talk about, you know, collections. Let's talk about what do you do when you, yeah, I mean, it really has felt like now there's this new energy, you know, and part of it, I think, is that it's the new content, but I think also a lot of it is that, like you said, there's so many more people who are able to attend and learn from these things and asking questions and giving feedback, and like it's just opening it up to so much of a broader audience that hopefully that's going to be a good thing for the industry as a whole.
And I think diversity of views, right? I mean, it's one of those, when you talk to the same people that do it all the time, you tend to not necessarily advance. When you have people who are asking tough questions like, why not this? Or you start to deal with practitioners that may not have the resources, and so they need to be, you know, work smarter, not harder. I think it's great to hear some of that perspective. You know, at least for me, I think it just challenges the way I think about how we deliver these services. And And I think you also hit another kind of key point about this. We've all been home for a long time, and there is some fatigue on that side, but there has been some opportunities for development and innovation on that there too, because you've been able to have people that have, maybe some of that extra time kind of come up with ways to, all right, how do we now, we can't go to this person's office to do this. How do we come up with ways to, not just remote collections, but how do we address the new data types that are coming out there? I mean, obviously, Rocky, you work in an organization that rolls out data, types and changes that are happening. We have to be forward thinking about how we address those issues from an information governance through production perspective. And so there's been time to kind of really assess what that looks like. And I was, back to the Florida conference, I was on that short messaging panel. The amount of feedback and messages I received after that, like of how they're out challenging, and they just thank you for some, some little nuggets on how do we address these things. I think it goes a long way on kind of, again, sharing and bridging the gap on the knowledge piece.
Yeah. But, sorry, Tom, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I think you make a really good point, Scott, that it's almost a contradiction in terms that we've restricted our access to each other, but in fact, we've expanded our contact with each other using a tool that's been there for a long time. The internet's not anything new, but all of a sudden we've had this.
Ooh,
that was going to be a brilliant thought, Tom.
Right?
Tom, you froze for about 10
no,
seconds.
they. Oh, okay. Must have been because I mentioned another conference, and the filter grabbed me. But other conferences are seeing the same thing, that people from all around the world who normally haven't been attending any of these things, all of a sudden are using the technology to reach out. So I think that's a really good point. The second point you make, Scott, though, that's really, of course, fresh to me, and we saw that, I saw questions that came up a lot during some of the sessions at the Florida conference, is the applicability of much of this to the non-Morgan Lewis firms of the world, the small firms, the little guys, the solos, the folks who are equally inundated now with electronic data. This is not just a big case situation. Everybody stores their data electronically. I mean, even Chief Justice Roberts several years ago in the Riley case made mention of all the intrinsic data that is important to every citizen is on their cell phone. Mm-hmm. Everything is electronic. And so the need to get this information, to attend these things, expands across the entire width of our profession, from a solo attorney in Opelousas to a big firm attorney in Miami. And we see it here. We see it here in Louisiana. We see it across the country, that folks are leveraging the technology to get more information. Really, really great comment. Great comment.
But now we get back to why we need Scott to be a judge, because we need the judiciary to catch up a little bit, I think, on some of this technology. I think I actually spoke to both of you guys a little bit about the article that I was writing on cloud attachments, and now there's some case law that just came out in regards to it. But basically saying, well, it's a hyperlink, and the hyperlink is the same as going to a website, just like if I was referencing case law, and I don't have to actually collect the case law, so I don't have to collect the attachments. So, yeah, we got to
You expect me to say something negative about that judge?
No, actually, absolutely not. But I think that part of that is we need to make sure that the judiciary is educated and is, as you said, Tom, the changes are coming fast and furious. We need to make sure that not just the practitioners and the technologists, but also the judges, and not just the judges who show up at the eDiscovery conferences, because there are plenty who are there, but hopefully this new broadening of the educational opportunities can go out to the judiciary as well. And I think, there were some very specific things in that case that may have led her to make that opinion over there. But there's also so many other, when you start getting into the short text messages and things like that, and like there are these little minutia that unless you really dig in, and quite frankly, the judges don't have time to really dig in. So we got to be able to feed them as much of those tips and tricks as quickly as possible, and the practitioners as well. So, yeah.
Without getting into that specific case, obviously, or anything, but it is nice to see more educational opportunities being afforded to the judiciary. One, I think you're hinting that you say that, but it is, you and I have been in this industry for a long time, and it was, if you remember, it's basically been 4 judges, all of us. It's basically 4 judges only. And it is nice now. Now you go to these events and you see, I think, a much broader range of the bench that are really kind of saying, this is important, I need to understand it, both at the state and federal level. And I think that's a positive sign. And I think it's incumbent on us as practitioners to make sure we have the right people attending these hearings. And I think, as you point out, they don't have a lot of time to get into minutia, but it's to be an advocate for your client, having the right people be able to articulate in a way that resonates with the people you're talking to is key. I still remember back in the day when I first started with eDiscovery, I would always equate it to like printed boxes, right? This would effectively be 6,000 printed boxes, right. Your Honor. Is this really what you want? And then that kind of rung a bell. Like, I understand now, rather than saying gigabytes, terabytes, petabytes, exabytes, right. It just doesn't make sense. And so I think as practitioners, it's important for us to be able to articulate, because now that the courts are becoming more open, they've got a backlog, and I think dealing with some of the minutiae and discovery issues could be problematic. And I think it's important for practitioners to bring the right people to help actually frame the issues and help with really bridging the gap on that side.
So on that, one of the things you mentioned earlier was that now you've got data scientists on your team. So as you start entering, I don't know how long you guys have had data scientists on the team, but that introduces an entirely new element to what a lot of people would say is already a complex process. How do you see or what are the opportunities? What should people be looking for in terms of how to help both their clients and the judiciary along in terms of, as we're using data science and AI more and more within the practice of law and the practice of eDiscovery?
Yeah, so from our perspective, the data scientist really wasn't necessarily solving that issue for us. It was more of looking at how do we slice and dice data differently to deliver legal services more efficiently in certain ways. So they're building, I'll just give you one use case. The increase in data incidences, right, and breaches, and every day you open the virtual newspaper now, you see that data has been compromised. But the notice period is quite quick, and so to analyze the data and look for trends and extract information, to me that's where lawyers are good at telling you how to address it, but you need somebody that can actually get in there and mine the data much quicker and actually help you figure it out and parse out. And I have a colleague named Jennifer Williams. How many Jennifer Williams do you think there are in the world? So knowing which Jennifer Williams do you even give notice to? So trying to tie all that. So to me, that's where data science really does help with, manipulating and adjusting the data. As for how we solve eDiscovery in education and, trying to get behind that black box, that's something that it's funny that you say that, because that's something I always wonder is, and I articulate that I think that holding some of these new advanced analytics platforms to a higher standard than you did when you did other reviews is actually what has, I think, stifled people from adopting newer technologies and more use of technology. Because if a client doesn't feel comfortable that you can articulate that black box, and they're likely to get challenged, and some judge will say, well, if you can't tell me what it did, how can I decide that it was defensible? that people rather just go back with the traditional search terms. And it's to me, it's like a chicken egg type issue where I feel like that has continued to maybe slow down adoption to some of the really cool technology solutions out there and available to us as practitioners in the space.
Right. I mean, you've got, individuals who absolutely will actually test their terms and, check on precision recall and things like that, when using search terms. But the vast majority of people are like, well, search terms are search terms and they're acceptable, so we're good. But when it comes to using any kind of more advanced technology, all of a sudden they get bogged down in the statistics, and half of them don't understand really what the statistics mean. So it just makes it worse. And yeah, it pushes people off and turns them away from using the technology.
And the more you have to do on the disclosure side, the more likely you are, because you didn't, other than running the search terms, maybe sharing hit reports, you didn't get it and know it. People aren't asking the questions like, what do I do here? What do I do there? What did you do to test? So not everybody's asking those questions. And so because it's almost like you're allowed to just respond to your discovery, whereas if you have to disclose TAR methodology and all that people just don't use it then. And so it's an area where, we are big proponents of it, and I'll use it in any way I can if it benefits the client. Because sometimes there's actually really good evidence on our side that we want to uncover quickly without incurring,
Right.
millions of dollars in, review expenses unnecessarily. So, and then think about it, investigations. It's a no-brainer to leverage technology in investigations. I think that is an area where if you're not, and I don't know that we're, I think we're doing it. We're giving our clients better value by leveraging the technology to help get to facts faster and less expensive.
How much do you find today that you're able to direct the technology choices versus the client now, stepping in and saying, hey, this is what we do? Because, obviously, I know in my experience that's changed over the years, but I'm wondering, when you've got a team like yours that is highly experienced and highly, able to direct and say, this is what works, do you find that you're able to do that, or are you getting more and more pushback from the clients?
No, I think that, I think clients are very receptive to alternative ways to get them to point A to point B. And I think if we demonstrate our workflow and process and we explain that we're getting a lot more adoption and willingness to let us exercise our judgment, on that front, I think, and I said this somewhere else, I said, if there's ever a time for change, it's now, because everything's a new normal, right? I mean, I think that's a little bit of an overused term at this point, but I think there's a lot of organizations that they don't have the budgets that they used to do some of these things, and so you have to deliver services in an alternative way, and we're just one way to get and I think drive some of that change and help. And I think clients are now very receptive to that.
Yeah. If you had to pick one thing over the last 15, 20 years that that's truly changed the way that you work, what would you pick? What's really shifted? I know I didn't prep you on this one. This is and see, I told you we're gonna come with something different in this one. We're not asking our
always one curveball. Rocky's always good for one curveball a game.
No, I think, for me, I don't know that there's been one thing that's changed. I think to me, it's just been adaptability and not afraid of change. And I don't even know that that's something there, but that's, one of the things that Tess as our practice group leader and really the firm as a whole has allowed is be adaptive, just deliver excellent results and have excellent client service. And so for me, not being afraid of change and being able to embrace it. And the firm has given us a lot of, flexibility in making sure we're trying new things, and you don't have to always be perfect. I mean, you obviously want to get the right results, and you've got to be good at what we do. But I think for me, it's the change has been just the flexibility to try new stuff, new workflows, new everything that we can, because that ultimately has allowed us to just be able to be more nimble in how we deliver it. Then a playbook that's step 1, step 2, step 3 in every single opportunity. From my personal practice, it's just been having a development team that will let me brainstorm ideas and they build something that's pretty darn cool. That's made my life easier because I used to try to build a lot of things of my own, and I'm definitely not a coder. And you can only watch so many YouTube videos to learn how to do some things. So having the opportunity to have a development team to come up with some of the ideas and actually now make something look really cool. We built a technology that was thought of well before the pandemic that was all about remote management of people in our manager view space. It finalized probably a month before we all went home. And so to have a tool now that was homegrown that allows us to not just track throughput, but track accuracy and track quality was incredible. But I wouldn't have been able to build that. So having a development team has changed my life, because now I don't care if I have reviewers in, Maryland versus, the district versus Philadelphia. I can now actually check and manage no matter where they are these days. And that's been a game changer for us, particularly when, you just don't have them in your physical space now.
Right. Absolutely. Tom, why don't you take us out with a final question?
All right, our big question. So we ask everybody this at the end of each session, Scott. If you could spend a day with anybody from our profession, and they don't have to be alive, it could be someone who's passed, and it doesn't have to be doing anything in our profession. It could be going to a baseball game, going fishing, going water skiing, anything. Who would that be, and what would you do?
And I had a little bit of time to think, just 2 minutes to think about this, but it's funny because I've gone about 16 different places, but I'm going to just end with this one. I think Richard Susskind, because it's the end of Lawyers, right? And I'm still fascinated by the fact that it's still the end of Lawyers, and I don't know how many times now that book has been written and published. And I don't know how many times you've heard this, but the e-discovery, somebody's going to solve e-discovery, and we're still here. And so I think he would be an interesting person just to I just love to play devil's advocate on all the positions that have been posed, just for, the fun part of my life, right. And just a challenge. But I probably would say, let's go to the Henley Regatta, watch some of the rowing, and just talk a little bit about now that we're in 2021, when is the end of the Lawyers, and is it really going to be, me, you, Rocky, and Siri that's going to be solving our legal problems, or is it something else? So I think that's my answer.
No, I think we can do it. I think that would be. I don't know about Siri. I don't know that we need Siri. Give me a keyboard. I like the keyboard.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I feel confident the three of us could knock off most of the problems. Yeah. People would. I say that to Rocky all the time. If people would just listen more to us, we wouldn't have all these problems.
All those problems would be solved. Exactly.
That's right.
Discovery. We're talking, world hunger. We're the pandemic. What pandemic? Yeah. Yeah.
The Super Bowl. We're talking.
Well, hold on. Because we're going to have a little bit of an NFC AFC conflict over here with the Super Bowl, Tom. So.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. Well, not so much from my end anymore since we lost our guy. So. You probably won't be hearing quite as much now that the great pretender has moved to Tampa Bay.
Well, it's funny because I was always able to root for both, right? I was born Philadelphia. Now, Eagles are my team, and I will always root for them first. But I adopted the Bucs living down there, so they're always my backup team. So I didn't claim the Super Bowl victory, and I wasn't bragging like, "Oh, it was my team." But I was like, I don't dislike them. So it was a good outcome for me overall on that.
Not too bad.
Yeah, I'm old enough that it's been interesting for me to watch the development of the league. When I was a little kid growing up in New England, there was no AFL, and then the AFL kind of came along. The early teams and the old Boston Patriots came out and played their first season or two in Fenway Park. And had guys like Nick Bonacani, who started with the Patriots, and just a bunch of guys. I mean, I knew guys who I went to high school, who I played ball with, who were on teams in the NFL at the AFL as they were putting those teams together. And then, so the loyalties really shifting as well. What's this whole Patriot? Because everybody growing up, we were all New York Giants fans. That was the closest team.
Right.
So everybody in New England was a Giants fan, pretty much. And then it was all of a sudden, ooh, the Patriots. Wow, what's this all about? Right?
I got a funny Pop Warner, so I played Pop Warner down in Sarasota, and I was a wee little one back then, and I got trucked. Do you remember Tommy Frazier, the great Nebraska quarterback?
Sure.
Tommy Frazier grew up, I think he grew up in Bradenton, but he played in our little Pop Warner league, and he was a man among boys, and he just ran over me. And I was like, I'm gonna feel that one for days. I still play, but it was
yeah.
I love
it puts
football.
it in perspective, right? Yeah.
Oh, now you've got the story to tell, so it's perfect.
Yeah.
There you go.
But it's because then I played for years still in, like, I call it like old person leagues, out there, and we'd had some. There's a guy named Sean Sky, local Philadelphia guy. He made the practice squad for the Eagles, but played for the Philadelphia Soul. He played in our leagues. He could run backwards faster than everyone. Just shows you the talent that you need.
Yeah.
And he could even make the league. The talent that you need. And I'm like, I was a decent athlete, but I was like, oh, that's what it takes, and it still takes.
And that's
more.
not enough.
And
Right.
that's not enough.
And those are the guys who are like, like you said, just barely making the cut on the practice squad.
Yeah.
And they're just phenomenal athletes.
Yeah.
So the guys who make the teams,
it's mind-boggling. The dedication they have to their craft is really cool to see, and sit down and actually talk to them. It's impressive. It's really fun.
It's impressive. Yeah. When I was younger, we lived in San Diego for a number of years. It's when Gail first got into weightlifting and bodybuilding, and she was working out at a Gold's Gym in Pacific Beach, which was near our apartment. And she would get up at 4:35 and go to the gym a couple of days a week. And it was amazing how many guys from the Chargers would be there in the off season, right? Their dedication. She, 2 days a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays, Junior Seau would be there at 5 a.m. lifting weights, right? I mean, the amount of they have the physical skill, and then the application of that through their concentration and their dedication. It's amazing. And I'm sure that's true at all sports at the professional level. If you're going to really achieve that, you don't just get it because you're
falling. Right.
No.
It's a lot more up here than people, I think that it's a lot more cerebral than it is necessarily athleticism. I mean,
that's
obviously you need to be a good athlete, but
much like our business, right? Yeah, we've all got great bodies and we're in fantastic physical shape, and we can stay up for days at a time, like Keith Richards, and but it's all the mental.
It's my carpal tunnel from coding all that, right?
Yeah, that's right. But my lower back, the strength from all the twisting and it's astonishing.
Salaries can get somewhere close to theirs. Then
yeah, that's not going to happen.
Cool.
Well, Scott, thanks so much for joining us. It's been a great pleasure talking to you. Hopefully, we'll see you somewhere down the line at a live event. I don't know when that will be. ILTA is planning on doing a hybrid, and we'll see how that develops over the course of the summer. If we can still continue to hold that out there, and who will actually be able to go. But I think it's going to be 2022 before we have a return to the steady diet of conferences, unfortunately. So
thank you for the opportunity. It's been great catching up. It's always nice to see both of you, and even though it's via screen, it's still nice just to get the banter.
No, it's great to have these chats. Yeah, as Rocky says many times, we try to emulate the hallway conversations that we'd have at a show, like grabbing a cup of coffee or standing outside of a booth or the exhibit hall or whatever. Some of just the casual conversations we had. So thanks so much, and best wishes with the team. Now you're 60 worldwide now. Who knows? Now next year 160, right? And expanding constantly.
2 more with less. Let's keep innovating, right? So
there you go.
60.
There you go.
Yes.
Yep. There you go. Good deal. And Rocky, as always, great talking with you. Thanks for joining in, and we will be back in a couple of weeks with another great guest. We'll get this posted up here pretty quick, and hope to see everybody next time on the eDiscovery channel. Thanks so much, folks.
Thanks.